On this week's episode of Three Dad Bods,
anywhere around, she just suddenly was right there on the sidewalk, crouched down with her head onto her legs like she was crying. And we both stopped and were quiet. And then we both kind of looked at each other. And when we looked back over there, she was gone.
Sarcastic, witty, and not afraid to mix it up. Pop open a cold one and welcome to Three Dad Bods.
Welcome everybody to another edition of Three Dad Bods with Brent, Karl, and the missing man. Link just vanished.
He's not taking our advice, Brent, to spend more time. I know. Just working.
I remember that tear-felt journey that we went on together, and discussing spending more time away from work. However, we've got two special guests with us tonight. We've got Lorene Newsome back with us again, our first return guest. Thank you, Lorene, for joining us.
And may I add, she's a sexy voice on every one of our intros and outros.
She's our girl. She is our girl. And we have Craig Campbell, who is a resident magician in Salt Lake. He's done Salt Lake Comic Con. He's part of the Ogden Magic Guild up in Ogden, Utah, vice president of the International Brotherhood of Magicians Ring. But he's also a founder of the Salt City Paranormal Research Society, which changed their name to Salt City Paranormal. And so, Craig, I'd like to welcome you on with us. How are you, my friend?
Doing good.
And I was thinking as we were kind of putting things together, I've known you a long damn time,
since kindergarten.
Since kindergarten, man. Since we talk about a lot of the neighborhood stuff, and I was just thinking of that Miss Angel's class there.
Yep.
Kindergarten, the little foxy little redhead.
Yeah.
So welcome, guys. And today's topic, I hope our listeners all had a chance to listen to last week's episode. We talked with our good friend Vinny and Alan, and Vinny had his near-death experience. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, I strongly recommend that you listen to that. And so we want to kind of go in the same direction, but a little different in there. And we brought on Lorene and Craig to talk about hauntings and paranormal experiences, I guess we could call it, right?
Absolutely.
There you go.
So to kick things off, maybe one of you guys could tell us, what is a haunting? What is it?
I personally don't like the word haunting, because it more or less, if you look up the definition of a haunt, it's basically a hangout. And so it's more of a paranormal experience, that a lot of people have. It's kind of like the same thing of, I don't like the term ghost hunting because, one of the mottos that we had for Salt City Paranormal was, went along the lines of, the hardest part of ghost hunting is hanging the head on the wall. And so it's one of these things that, I guess you can say it's more of a personal type thing. I'm the more ghost hunting or paranormal research that I've done on it, the more skeptical I've become. And so there's certain things that, it's really hard to nail down. But if you were to take the actual word of haunting, what it is, it's a paranormal experience is what it is. It's something outside of the norm.
So, Craig, so is there a way to scientifically prove that a ghost is in a room, like the old show you saw on TLC, or I can't remember, Discover, where
Honestly, I don't think there is. There's no
Yeah.
way to prove or disprove. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I went to a person's home. They, oh, grandpa goes from this side of the room to this side of the room at 10 o'clock every single night. So we're sitting there with all of our cameras, all of our equipment. 10 o'clock rolls around, 11 o'clock rolls around, 12 o'clock rolls around, and absolutely nothing. So, um, but there are, I mean, I've had experiences that I can't explain, you know, it just, it's one of these things that you really can't prove it. Although, I started my organization to really go in on a scientific level, as much scientific level as we could come up with, and try to gather actual evidence of it. And because, I've always, with me being a magician, I've always looked at it. If I can recreate an experience on stage, it's not evidence. Because that way, it's possible to fake it. But if you can't fake it, if there's no way of recreating it, then it's more of an evidence. And so to sit there and say, is there a scientific way of doing it? No. But that's what a lot of the paranormal researchers are out there doing, is trying to come up with an actual scientific means of finding and gathering that evidence.
So
Do-
what would be the first step? Like, I call you up and I say, Craig, I think my house is haunted. Run me through what you'd have.
First of all, do ghosts find the word haunting offensive? Is it not politically correct and they become upset? Much like little people find that midget is offensive. And that's why I like to use haunted midgets as much as possible
Oh
to
God.
gather that full spectrum.
Well, so much for being on the air. Okay. That was it. We're done. All right. That was the shortest podcast in history. All right.
Because 90% of our listeners are midgets, and I like to thin them as much as possible. The other 10% are dead, and they're haunting us. So
Next thing you're gonna say is rotard. So then we'll really be in trouble. Hard midgets that see ghosts. Yes.
how about a haunting from Joseph Smith? Is there anything along those lines at all?
I'm gonna offend every person in our audience.
No idea.
Okay. That's St. Louis. Are there ghosts in St. Louis? Brent knows what I'm talking about.
Just for you, Brent. Just for you, Brent. I brought my special
Nice.
water.
Only water.
Yeah,
Man.
I'm gonna need some after.
I love that album from Ronnie James. Oh wait, no, that was Holy Diver. Sorry about that.
All right, so I got a ghost. Okay, I've got a ghost. My son claims that he saw a ghost in the house downstairs in the basement. That's what he says about this house I'm in right now. It used to be so Battle Creek. It was a battle here in Pleasant Grove between the Indians and the Pioneers. The Pioneers kind of whooped some butt and killed a bunch of Native Americans, and they're all buried around my house somewhere. So my son, who lived down in the basement at one point, claims, and he's pretty spiritually sensitive, maybe too sensitive. He's claiming he saw a ghost in our house. Now, I haven't felt crap. I mean, I'm not sensitive at all for this kind of stuff, but personally,
you have no feelings, Carl. That's why.
Well, if he's moving stuff around, if he's cleaning the house up, I'm okay with that. You can go ahead and continue to do that if you want. But
Well,
I mean, what do you prove? How do you prove it?
As for the cleaning goes.
One of the things
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
One of the things that we would do is, I mean, we have our investigators, we have our researchers, I had people that worked in City Hall that would look up property lines and histories of the properties. We'd find out as much information about the location as we could before we went in. We also went and did a scouting, like especially with a residential home, it's a lot easier to do a scouting where we go in, we look at the structure. Case in point, about 4 or 5 years, actually, man, it's been longer than that, probably about 8 years ago now. We had a, a family give us a call, similar to what's going on with you, where the grandson was sleeping down in the basement with his brother, had incredible nightmares all the time, was seeing things, um, and so we went in. It, I mean, it was the house was located by the junior high that Brent, Lorene, and I went to. So nothing really special about the area.
Kennedy
Um,
Crusaders.
Kennedy. And
I want
so
to.
we never really found anything that happened on the land. But when I go down to the boys' bedroom, my teeth would buzz, and which I found kind of interesting. And so we came back a couple nights later with all of our equipment set up on all levels of the house. The only thing that we caught was dust orbs, which are anybody walking down the stairs, it just throws dust everywhere. But anytime I went into this bedroom, my teeth would vibrate, and so I brought in my meters, and they were off the charts. I mean, they were literally the needle was buried at the highest point, and which tells me that there was a strong electrical field in there. And when I got closer to the bed, it was a bunk bed. When I got up to his, it stopped working.
Hmm.
And so I pulled out this. I mean, I brought some of the tools I use. I pulled out this one, which is the EMF, an electronic EMF, and which electricians use to find wires. And um, this kid was sleeping about 3 feet underneath a fluorescent light tube,
Ooh,
and it was a industrial strength light. And this thing was throwing off so much EMF that, yeah, the kid
frying the
was
poor
having,
kid.
yeah, it was frying his brain at night. And, I basically told him, move the kid out of the room, lower him down, whatever, and he'll be fine. And he was, after that. And so, so we really researched the area to find out what happened. Um, Now, as far as your son seeing ghosts, you know, that I'd have to actually go in and see what I could find. But yeah,
Yeah.
Battle Creek was I mean, it wasn't necessarily just pioneers and Indians. It was also a huge Civil War uh, battlefield, and so there's a lot that happened in that area.
Well, the reason I ask is I think because he's going through something in Germany right now where he's kind of reevaluating some of these things, and he's because the mind can play tricks on you, and
Hmm.
I think I think he convinced himself that he saw some of these quote spirits. Now, it could be that he did. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell for sure, but I think he realizes too, though, that he can make meaning into anything that he hears, scrapes. I mean, when you're in a basement, I used to live in the basement too, and it sucks. And you got rats, mice crawling around, and you got spiders, and you got, like you say,
You
fluorescent.
had rats in your basement?
No, well, probably mice. You had two. You had mice in your house.
No,
Yeah, probably.
never had mice in my house.
Yeah, there was a farmer's field right next to my house when I lived in West Valley, right by that church. So whatever, dude.
You probably
Freaking
had the butler clean them up.
Sean's friend crapped in my basement right next to my room. Yo, bozo. Anyway, yeah. Before I moved in, Carl Arnold took a big Duke right in the storage room where he kept all our food. Little bastard. Anyway,
Was
yeah.
it Carl Arnold or was it a ghost?
It was Sean. Sean was hanging out with him, and Sean, whoa, shit. I didn't like him at that point. He started chasing me with the freaking poop on a board. I was like, who are you guys? Freaking terrorists. I'm like, what am I moving into this house for? I'm like,
They're
I
trying to
want to
scare
move
the
back
shit
to,
out of you.
I want to move back
Literally.
to Cherrywood Lane. Anyway, yeah. So Craig, do you think a lot of the time it's kind of in their mind?
I say in all honesty, I'd say a good 90% of it is. Because I mean, even when I was teaching how to do ghost hunting, the newbies, I always told them, you're always going to see what you want to see, hear what you want to hear. That's why the evidence is so important. Without that evidence, everything becomes nothing but a campfire ghost story. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it is in their mind. It's kind of like when you go camping, and you're in the woods, you automatically get that eerie feeling behind you. You get the hair standing
Right.
up on your neck. And there's, and especially in older houses where like the electrical's not up to date, there is a very strong electromagnet field that runs through a lot of older houses because just simply because of the wires. So you're going to have that hair raising up on your neck. You're going to, you're going, depending on what transformers you have in your house, I mean, there's houses I went into that, yeah, I felt like people were watching me, and it ended up being, some guy decided to be Tim Allen and put in the
Oh,
big
got a
box.
funny story.
You
I got a funny story about this. So we were in downtown Philly, and this really deep. It was in a pretty low income area, and anyway, we stopped and talked to this Pentecostal preacher, and he says, "Oh yeah, I just bought this church," and we are like, "Oh cool." So we were talking to him, and he says, "Yeah, the other reverend was arrested." I'm like, "Why?" Well, he put two powerful transformers at each side of the room, and when he wanted the Holy Spirit to be felt, he jammed that sucker up as hard as he could, and everybody was going, "Whoa, that the Holy Spirit!" And everyone was sticking up. I mean, someone's pacemaker had a problem, and
That's crazy.
that's what caused the problem. They got
That's
arrested,
hilarious.
but yeah, it was in the news.
All
It
right.
was all over the place. Yeah,
So,
crazy.
Lorene, I remember growing up, your place had some freaky deaky stuff going on inside of it.
Oh, yeah.
Your place and Danny's across the street over there was crazy vibes going on. Now, granted, as kids, we were trying to seek that stuff and do some scary stuff, but you've had some actual stuff happen, right, Lorene?
Yeah. My parents' house that I was raised in, the previous owner, um, his wife died in the house, which is common. But she died from an aneurysm, a brain aneurysm, and it took her 6 days to die. And she was in horrific pain the entire time. Didn't go to the hospital. She just suffered until she died.
Mm.
Yeah.
She didn't go to the hospital?
No, and he didn't take her to the hospital.
I had no idea. I thought your parents were like the only people that lived in that house.
No, the previous person that owned the house, when we purchased the house, a lot of the neighbors told us that he was not a nice gentleman, was not well liked.
Mm.
Anybody that lets their spouse sit and suffer for 6 days before they finally pass, well,
You
yeah,
should have got charged for manslaughter.
murder.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds like she should have made more sandwiches, is what it sounds like to me.
Brent, you're terrible. Yes. Growing up, we had a number of different instances. I was never scared of paranormal activity. I was just something I guess I was born with. I don't know. But when I would sit at the kitchen table, kind of like I'm doing right now, when I was studying for college, you would hear very distinct footsteps that would go from the bedroom and walk up behind me and stop. And it didn't matter what part of the house you were in, everybody could hear it. And my parents at the time were downstairs and they would be quilting and they would hear tap, 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 tap all the way across from the bedroom to where I'm sitting. And it would stop behind me. And then about 20, 30 seconds later, it would start again. Tap, 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 stop. Well, a girl can only take so much of that. And so I would say, Miss Martin, please stop doing that. I'm trying to study. And it would stop. except for the one time that my mom's coming up the stairs and I had had just about enough. And I was like, damn it, Miss Martin, I'm trying to study. Go do something like play with the damn curtain. And as my mom was coming upstairs, the curtains in the front room went flying up and then slammed back down. And
Wow.
that's when my mom came up and said, don't ever do that again. Yeah, she's very, don't ever tell her to do something like that again. And it just was a creepy circumstance. And I mean, nobody ever felt spooked or like it was evil. It just felt
Mhm.
like there was somebody else in the house.
So, Craig, on an experience like that, what is like why does that happen? Why is this
I
person
don't,
who's passed on continuing in an area like that? What causes that, or why would that happen?
you know, I in situations like that, it could be that the person just didn't want to go. They didn't want to leave yet, and so you know, I mean, I don't know the answer to it, but that's the best guesstimation that you can say is that they just didn't want to leave. Um, and which happens, it's I mean, I have a lot of friends that, they said that they were seeing their grandma for 6 years after her death, and then just one day she wasn't around anymore, you know.
Mm.
And so it could be whoever is in that situation, they could feel that they weren't ready. They whatever it was that they felt they needed to do here wasn't accomplished yet. It could be a lot of things, you know. Um, that would definitely fall in that small fraction of real instances, Um, kind of
Also,
kind
Daniel
of a funny
was
thing.
my fault.
Yeah, I mean, I heard a lot of the stuff that went on at Danny's house too.
Yeah,
But
that
you
was
know,
totally my
what
fault.
got me into this whole thing was I was getting ready for shows out in Magna, at the Empress Theater, and we had midnight rehearsals because they had their play that they had to rehearse for. So we'd come in at midnight and do our rehearsals for the magic show. And as everything, I mean, a lot of stuff happened there that I can't explain, and it got me curious. What put the nail in the coffin of me saying to jump into wanting to do research was we'd be putting stuff away, and here it's 2 o'clock in the morning in Magna, which is completely dead, and we'd hear girls laugh going on outside. We'd go out there, and
Wow.
there'd be nothing out there. And then this one particular night, I was getting in my car, and our rehearsal hall was in the auxiliary building, and we were up on the second floor, and there was a window that was knocked out. There's no glass in it. The room was completely walled off because they did that because birds kept going in and crashing and dying in there. So they just walled that entire room off. There was no way to get in there. And I got to my car and I was like, I felt like something was watching me. So I turn around, I look up at the window and I see this little girl with this black shadow standing behind her.
Wow.
And I was just like, okay, that's cool. And so me and one of my assistants decided, hey, let's do a ghost hunt because Ghost Hunters was popular at that time. And um, and a lot more like one of the other nights I was there, I was in the bathroom. I knew where my hands were, and all of a sudden I felt this go across my forehead. And I'm just like, wow, I mean, a lot was happening. So we brought in just a digital recorder and stayed an extra hour behind and walked through the entire Empress doing stuff. And at that time, everything was carpeted. Well, when I listened back to the tapes, you heard cowboy boots on wood floors walking across. The
Mm.
Empress started out being a brothel back in when Magna was Pleasant Green. And so, uh, and after it burned down a couple of times, it's been rebuilt several times. But I felt that that was kind of interesting to hear those cowboy boots. And then we also heard somebody whistling, which was kind of cool. That kind of started me off on this whole thing of wanting to. So I wanted to justify what I saw. And I don't know if you can go into it, but if you go into Salt City Paranormal on Facebook,
Hmm.
is it
I
possible
was
for me to
just,
share on here?
yeah, I was just in the hauntedrooms.com. But yeah, go ahead and hit the share button, which is a little up arrow.
Okay, let me see if I can get this to share.
What's the
Uh,
website? And I can look
And,
it up.
and while you're doing that, just a quick question. So, you mentioned like this lady, whose grandmother was with them for like 6 years, Lorene's, who's been around for a number of time, but they don't realize what's going on, do they? Because there's no time, right? So to them, it's just an instant blip of what's going on, correct?
yeah, I mean, it's well, some passings can be quick, and some of them are, kind of like the Miss Martin. It can be long drawn out. I mean, and but this is the window that I looked up at, and there's absolutely no glass in there, no chicken wire whatsoever. But if you look right here, you can see the little girl, and you can see the shadow behind her. Okay. Um, and then this one, I reversed the image, and you can see it a little bit better. I wish I could blow this up a little bit.
Oh, wait. Look at
Uh,
that.
but you
There's
can
an old
really
Is
lady
something on the
hanging.
top?
no, that's actually the back wall and the
Oh,
ceiling.
Oh,
Uh, we put this red square around it, and you can definitely see a little girl there with a shadow figure standing behind her. This was like 3 or 4 years after my experience. We did for a long
still
time.
there.
We were the only ghost hunting group allowed in the Empress, and so
huh.
we had free reign of this place for 3 years. And one April night, or is during the winter, one of the investigators was outside. She had this feeling something was watching her. So she turned around, snapped this picture, and she caught what I saw, which I found really interesting. Um, let's see. One of the guys that runs the group now threw up a bunch of other pictures. So, but it's it was kind of cool. And I mean, and that's one of those. I can't get my mouse down there now to put it back. Ah, come on, there we go. Um, so like I said, there's instances that I can't explain. One of the times walking into the theater, it suddenly felt like I got punched in the eye with an ice ball. Uh, Nobody was in front of me. Absolutely, I mean, I was the first one in. Everybody else was behind me, and it hit me so hard I actually hit the floor. And there's another time when I was at the Rio Grande Station downtown Salt Lake. We were doing a investigation down there, and I was in the basement women's bathroom with two other investigators, and all of a sudden my back started burning, and I was just like, "What the crap?" And didn't think anything of it. Got home, took off my shirt, and I had scratches all over my back.
Wow.
That
Wow.
nobody was around me when that happened. So there's things that you can't explain, and you know, but as far as the time of death, it's like it's literally when that time comes, it's like it's faster than a blink of an eye. I mean, I used to be an EMT. I mean, I've seen a lot of people die, and it's very quick when it goes. I mean,
Mm.
what leads up to that can be painful and long drawn out, but the actual death itself, it's fast. I mean, it's literally faster than you can blink. And so some of those people, you know, you see these people that are walking down the street, get hit by a car. They don't know what hit them. And so they may hang around because they feel that their time wasn't now. Their body's dead, but their spirit's still alive. So they choose to hang around for a while. So um, those are answers that a lot of people are out there trying to find. Um, my research is more or less um, debunking those that are faking it. That's
So,
really what I'm doing.
so Craig, there's a lot of money being made on TV shows and YouTube over this whole subject.
I
Skinwalker
can't stand
Ranch.
those guys on TV. I can't stand
Oh,
those guys.
Skinwalker Ranch. Tell me what you think about that one.
um, that is a interesting lore.
Yeah.
Um,
The guy
you
who
know,
owns that has more money than God, Brandon
but
Fuel.
it has,
See the guy that wears the skin tight black shirts.
Yeah.
it's funny. I read the book Skinwalker Ranch, and then I was doing a blood drive up in Vernal, and a bunch of us decided, hey, let's go drive by because at that time the military actually owned it, and so you could not get. I mean, you couldn't even approach the front fence. I mean, there's like you had the road, and then you had a good 100 yards of field, and then the front fence. And so you could drive by and kind of see it, but you couldn't see any of the buildings or anything. Well, in the book, it talks about this disc that appears in the air, that and not like a UFO disc like this, but it's up like in this position, so vertical position. We were driving by it, and we actually thought it was the sun. And as we went, it it was like this, and as we got past it, it was like this, and then it was
Mm.
like this in our rearview mirror, and we're just like, "That's kinda cool," and I just like, I read about that,
Mm.
and that was an actual experience that I happened to see with my own eyes there. As far as the rest of it goes, who knows? I mean, there's everything that because when the military took over the ranch, it was so locked down, a lot of it became rumor.
Yeah.
Um, but you do have the documented of the owner before, and then the guy who bought it from the military now who owns it. Um, and so they're trying to figure out a lot of the same things that happened from the book that was written about Walker Ranch. There's so much that is written on that you just sit there and go, what's real? What really happened? It's kind of a conglomerate now. The cool thing about Skinwalker Ranch is the guy that owns it now, he actually allows tours in and to
Yeah.
do, but I mean, you have to pay an arm and a leg to do it. One of
It
these
makes
days,
some money.
maybe, but I mean, that brings up an interesting point. Yeah, a lot of people are making money off of this stuff, and which is sad because it gives, I mean, the way I look at it is any paranormal team that charges a client money is not a true team. They're in it for the money. They're not in it to find out the research. They're not in it for the scientific uh, outlook of it. They're in it to gain money. So a lot of these people that go, oh, should I go on a ghost tour? No, don't, because they're in it for the money. They're going to drive you around town and say, oh, this happened here, this happened here. I went ahead and did a ghost tour that went up to the Bundy home. Come to find out where they took
Al?
where the yeah, where the Bundy home was never the Bundy home. It was just a creepy cellar that was sitting out in the middle of a field. And so I get really I get not offensive. Well, yeah, offensive about these people that charge because you're out there trying to find the research, and you come across somebody that needs help, and they say, "Oh, we'll help you for 150, $200."
Right.
Which is asinine. Because we're really in it to help the people and also to do the research. Um, and so when these TV shows first cropped up, I think they were in it for the right reasons. But then the network stepped in and said, you need to bring up the rating
Spice it up.
and
Yeah.
spice it up. And a matter of fact, Ghost Hunter Taps, Ghost Hunters, which was the forefront of ghost hunting, really ruined their name because there are several episodes where it was proven that they faked it just for the ratings. And
I
so, I
believe
mean,
it. Yeah.
I was asked, I've been asked, hey, do you want to do this? And it's like, no, I don't want to go on TV. I don't want to be paid for it because that ruins credibility for other ghost hunters. And
Well,
now, even here in Salt Lake, it's very, very hard to find anywhere to do a ghost hunt because, you have these hacks that go in and don't respect the place and, touch stuff and move stuff and break stuff or they charge people an arm and a leg to go in and it's sad because it really has put a bad name on a lot of the paranormal research, and it's getting harder to do it because of those TV shows.
Hmm. Interesting.
We think we saw a ghost once in our neighborhood. Um, Matt and I late at night. Honestly, true story right here. As often was the case, we would be out roaming around, and Lorene can bear witness to this, that we would often knock on people's windows and put our butts up against them and moon them as they open their blinds. That's not the ghost. Um, so one night we were out late, and we were walking in front of my neighbor's house, the Norrs, and directly across the street was our friends, the Mattingleys. And on the sidewalk, we both looked and we saw this girl. Didn't see her walk there, didn't see her anywhere around. She just suddenly was right there on the sidewalk, crouched down with her head onto her legs like she was crying. And we both stopped and were quiet. And then we both kind of looked at each other. And when we looked back over there, she was gone. And Matt and I talk about this all the time. The little girl, the little crying girl that
It's funny because you're not the first one I've heard that about. That
really,
right around Boot Hill Drive, there's a girl that a lot of people have seen doing that. So
wow.
That's
you're not the first one that I've heard talk about
we
that.
saw her from Danny's front window. There was
Uh-huh.
a whole bunch of her, and she was over on my side of the street, standing, just staring at us. And so,
Huh.
being the
I'm getting chills right now, by the way.
I decided to go out to see what she was, and from the time that I got from Danny's front window to the side door out to the driveway, she was gone.
Wow.
Wow.
And there was probably 10 of us in the house I saw her.
Yeah, I mean the stories I've heard is that she's dressed in probably about 1970 between 1970 to 1974's clothing. I've heard that she's been skipping rope, that she's seen
It was a
crime.
white shirt.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so you're definitely not the
I just
first
got
one I've
chills.
heard that about. It's kind of funny. I have to tell you the story. Shortly after I started doing ghost hunting, um, and really wanting to get into it, I went ahead and went out on a ghost hunt with a group in Tooele, and I mean, I was really fresh. All I had was a digital recorder. Um, we went around it was a school that we did out in Midvale. And I went home and a couple days later listened to the playback and I hear, this one part just went, "Mm." And then I heard some gibbering, some mumbling. I'm like, and nobody in my group heard it. You could tell we couldn't hear it because we kept talking. And I was like, "Whoa, I finally caught something." And so I marked the time and everything. I called Tom and I get him on the phone and I send him my sound bites and all of the timing and everything. And was comparing it to his timing. Well, a couple hours later, he calls back and he's laughing. And he's like, "Well, yeah, you definitely caught something." And I'm like, "Wow, what really?" He's like, "Yeah, but unfortunately, it's not what you think." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "That was me
Stomach
down the
growling.
hall and I farted." So he farted, and the mumbling that we were hearing was the people laughing. And so,
It's like that Saturday Night Live episode, the ghost hunters,
yeah,
I can smell
I
a
mean,
sulfuric smell coming from this area right over here. It's so strong. No, let's move on. Let's move on.
the recorder I had was one of those really nice ones. And, you have the microphones that are like this, that could pick
Yeah.
up the slightest thing. Well, it was a little too powerful. And
Just trying to
I
hear
could
my
pick up
stomach
stuff
funny,
on
man.
the side. But it's funny because when I take and teach people how to do the research, one of the biggest things I tell them is you are your own tool. Don't rely on recorders. Don't rely on the meters. Don't rely on your cameras. Rely on your senses. That's where you're going to get the biggest, what if. I mean, these are nice, but they're faulty. I
Mhm.
mean, this was the biggest self on ghost hunter sites there was. CB radio sets it off.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so, you can't really rely. They're nothing but tools, but you're the biggest tool. And so a pad
I've
of
been told
paper,
that often.
a pad of paper and a pencil is the best thing to have. And then to rely on your senses. When it comes to cameras, I used to do digital camera all the time, you know, but then I started really thinking about my motto of if I can recreate it on stage, it's not evidence. Well, digital photographs are the easiest to manipulate. And so I now use Polaroid. Anytime I go on a ghost hunt, I have a Polaroid camera, and I'll use that. I actually use both. Um, and I haven't caught anything on the Polaroid, whereas on the digital, I mean, man, I was able to get all sorts of colors and all sorts of things. And so a lot of it is shutter speed. Um, there's, I wonder if I can find this picture. Uh, so you really have to look at, what is the best thing for me to use. And I've gotten rid of, the infrared cameras. I've gotten rid of everything. And I go in with a Polaroid camera, a notebook, a pencil, and a flashlight. Those are the only things I use now. Um, because like I said, it is so easy to manipulate digital cameras and digital pictures that you can make anything, even the EVPs now. I don't really, matter of fact, here, I found that picture from, Rio Grande. Um, you know, EVPs can be, I mean, I have a magic trick where I do EVPs. You
Oh,
know,
jeez.
the scratches I got from Rio Grande.
That's not your wife behind you. Just kind of.
Nope, that's me. That's just me lifting my shirt.
Oh boy,
Um,
how should I explain that to your lady? Yeah, I was.
well, apparently it was actually an upside down seven.
Was it really?
There was, yeah, that was just, I was just like, where is, what bit me? It felt like something bit me. So I raised the shirt for the girl to look at, and she's just like, you're scratched. And so, but when I got home to take a shower, my wife was just like, well, there's actually a lot more on there than just that.
She was like,
So
mm,
yeah, she's like, oh,
Mhm.
now I know you do all those ghost hunts. Um,
Well,
I
that
actually have,
Craig, I got a question because I've
uh-huh.
been waiting to ask it, but can't get a question in here. What would trigger, in most cases, a haunting? Would it be a violent act, a crime, some sort of crime, or just like Rock Canyon where I live? There's been a lot of reports of ghosts because climbers fall. Mountain lions eat people in the canyon. There's been some reported mass murders that have holed up in a cave somewhere there. The kids all talk about it. So what triggers these hauntings in most cases?
In most cases, it's a violent act.
Okay.
That's what I've found in the ones that I can't explain. Something really violent has happened there.
There's never like a happy ghost. You've never found a happy.
I mean,
or a cleaning ghost.
I'd like a maid ghost with a
no,
nice
no
outfit on.
Caspers. I mean, there's what we call friendlies. I necessarily don't believe in friendlies.
No.
Because I mean, my own personal belief is we're not going to see somebody from the other side unless there's a very specific reason that they're over on this side of the veil. And so, you know, you have these, I mean, I don't know how religious you are, but you have your demons and you have your angels, basically. And a demon is going to imitate something good for the longest time, and then they'll just slowly start turning. Matter of fact, Annabelle, um, when she started to manifest herself, it wasn't in an evil way. It was, you know, it was very playful, and it just slowly became more and more and more evil. Um, and the more it was around that situation, the more Annabelle became its true colors, which was more demonic. I've had them on
So
this.
that little girl on Boot Hill, do you think that would be a good example of that?
That might be, yeah. I mean, I've never personally seen the girl. I've never talked to anybody who's interacted with it. They've only seen her from a distance,
Okay.
and they get within 10 to 15 feet of it, and she's not there anymore.
Is that how close
Um,
you and Matt were, Brent? About 10 or 15 feet?
Across the street,
Yeah.
right across the street.
so probably about 30
Not very
feet.
far. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we're right
um,
across the street.
so this one is a good example of shutter speed, and this is, this was taken at Castle of Chaos, and this was given to
Chaos.
this was given to me by a grandmother of this girl.
Oh.
And she was freaking out about this because right here where she put this square, you can see a skeleton
Oh, wait.
or something.
Is that the
In
reflection from the mirror?
there's
That
no
is
mirror.
not in a haunted
And
house.
so this is the original. She's in the haunted house. So this is the original. And so this one I inverted, and I drew it out, and I actually sent this to my brother that's a photographer, and he was just like, all that is slow shutter speed. Uh, and what you're seeing is actually a reflection coming off the
Her dress.
on her dress.
Yeah.
Right.
That doesn't really look
But
like
to
a
look at
skeleton.
it looks like a demon.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh. Well, her eyes
And
are
because
pretty good.
well, she has contacts in because she's
Oh.
a vampire she was a character in the haunted house. So like I said, this is the original. And you can actually see the dress pattern better in the original
Oh.
than you can in the black, in the inverted.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
And
Okay.
so, this one was kind of bugging me. It's just like, what the crap is that? I knew it wasn't what her grandmother was thinking it was. So I sent it to my brother, and he looked at it. He's just like, that's just a reflection off the rhinestones. That's all that is. And so that's one of the reasons why I don't like, I don't like digital cameras anymore because they're,
Is that too
know,
manipulative?
yeah, they're too manipulative. The shutter speeds on them are pretty slow. So you get in a dark area like that and you get effects like that, because there was fog around her, it was hard, and so she just probably moved a little bit when the picture got taken, and it was just enough for the lights in there to bounce off those rhinestones and create that picture.
So what would be the best place in Utah, like for Lorene and I? And I don't know if you know anywhere in Tennessee for Brent, but where would be the best place to catch a ghost if we were to?
There's a
be real
lot in Tennessee.
I bet there is. Yeah.
Honestly, the most haunted place I've ever encountered, and a lot of people don't believe it because now it is a yearly haunt attraction, is Asylum 49 in Twilla. Yeah, it's the old Twilla Hospital.
That's right.
There's stuff that I've caught. I mean, it kind of irritated me because my camera decided to crap out right when it happened. But there was an old conference room in there, and I had a tea light candle sitting on the conference room table, and we were talking there's several kids that are there, and we were kind of acting like we were playing a game, and this tea light candle moved from one end of the table to the other end.
Just
Um,
moved.
just moved. And that thing was perfectly flat. We had levels on it and everything to show that it was flat. And I went back to review the footage, and you see the candle there, and all of a sudden it just goes snow from that point on. And so my camera crapped out, didn't catch it. Um,
Oh.
they have video of ghosts there. They have, I mean, one of my offices used to be in the nursing home next door to the hospital. Uh, there's no access to the roof. Everything's blocked off. There's no way to get up there, and you'd always hear running across the roof.
It's an insane
Um,
asylum, right? Old
no,
asylum. Yeah.
no, it's just the old hospital, and
Okay. All right.
so that one, in all honesty, if you're to come out here to do a ghost hunt, I highly recommend Asylum 49. It's even
Lorene,
hard
we should do it. We should do it for Three Dad Bods. Hey,
Anytime, I'm just letting you know that I do have a tendency to scream like a girl sometimes.
okay. I do too.
So does Cara.
But to let you know, also, for whatever reason, paranormal activity loves to be around me.
Really? That's
Mhm.
kind of cool.
It's the voice.
The voice, yeah.
It's the voice. It's
You-
what I was
yeah.
wearing.
You know
I mean,
that movie Bell Witch, done right here in Tennessee,
yeah.
just outside of
Yeah.
Nashville.
Blair
It's
Witch
maybe
or Blair-
30 miles from our, not Blair Witch,
Bell
Bell
Witch.
Witch.
Bell Witch, huh?
Yeah.
That's an interesting case study. The movie kind of elaborated on it.
It's a movie.
They're trying to say it was the father,
American Haunting.
you know,
Yep.
Yeah.
Pedophile.
playing around with his daughters in a bad sense, that caused it. But there's a lot that happened with that was actually documented that, unfortunately it's no longer happening. So they can't go back and try to recreate. But,
It was so many people that go and visit it.
yeah. And there were hundreds of witnesses of things that happened there. And that's a really interesting.
And we
Yes.
have 2 houses over from me. In their backyard, they have a cemetery
Oh, that's cool. I would
in the
love that.
backyard. And it's an old, it's like 1600s, 1700s.
Oh, those are
And
the
it's-
best one.
Yeah, it's got a chain link corral. It's right in the middle of this guy's backyard, and it has these big monuments. It's really like in the fog. It's very, very creepy looking.
Oh,
But it's
I got to come back to Tennessee.
that you see that all over.
So there's a lot of them in Tennessee.
What was that, Lorene?
Yeah.
I was gonna say it's very common from the older
Oof.
generation that when you had a family home, that you would have a family cemetery connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they pop out. Like you'll be driving down the road and you'll see like a just random like 6 tombstones sticking up. You see that all the time. But I think the most popular place is the old state penitentiary
Oh, yeah.
here in Nashville that was built in the early 1800s, but during the Civil War, it was a prison camp.
Oh,
And basically, it was just some very, very ruthless stories that they speak of what happened
Yeah.
in the prison during that time.
Taps did a special there, and
Mhm.
they got some really cool things there. I'd love to go back to that area again and play around.
Yeah.
So-
Come on
so,
out.
so even for the skeptics, Lorene and Craig, this is a good question for both of you. For even skeptics that are highly like, this is crap. It sounds like to me there's so many cases. There's a lot of cases, and then there's a lot of BS cases. How do you tell which kind of stories have a little element of truth to them? What's a kind of a good way to
It all
sort
depends
through it.
on what you gather. Um, there was one that I did. It actually pissed me off because it was a complete waste of time. We went to a fraternity that they were saying it was haunted, so we went and set
What
up
fraternity?
everything. I'm not going to say,
Too
but
much beer.
it was a local fraternity. We went in, we set up our. I mean, it took
I'm all
3 or
about
4 hours
naked
to get
ghosts.
everything set up. Well, they were just like, "Oh, this one room." So, yeah, when you walked in, you got physically ill walking into that room.
Did it
And
stink?
no, actually it didn't. Um, but what it ended up being was I just like, this is just too weird because nowhere in the house was there anything. It was just this one room.
This ghost
And
named
so
Blair that died from a
I
pillow fight.
I pulled out I had a subharmonic meter,
Yeah.
and I pulled that out and it was registering 19 megahertz. Now, do you know what the
Oh.
19 megahertz is? So
Mm-mm.
19 megahertz is now considered illegal for movie theaters to use because of the movie, um, where she spits pea soup, The Exorcist.
Oh
Exorcist.
What it
yeah.
is they put in these big subwoofers that do a frequency that you cannot hear, you really can't feel, but it messes with your system. And it was scaring people to death. And so between that and the subliminal messages, it made it to where movies could no longer use both at the same time. Okay. So some of
I
the
had no idea.
scary movies that you go see will use 19 megahertz sound. And some of them will still use the subliminal message so that you can go get your popcorn. Um,
That's
well, what they did
important.
was they pulled
Huh.
down a wall. They put in a 40-inch subwoofer into the wall, replastered it, and was doing this 19 megahertz through it. And they were doing it for their frat parties to freak people out. And so they wanted to see if they could fool a ghost team. And
Oh,
yeah,
didn't happen.
it didn't happen. And so I mean, we were there maybe 4 hours, because it took a long time to set up all the cameras. Once we started the investigation, 45 minutes, and I found that. And I was just like, thanks for wasting our time. And we packed up when we left. So I would say for every real instance that you cannot explain, you cannot recreate, you cannot do anything but sit there and scratch your head and say, what is it? For every one, there's 100 fakes.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So
Wow.
that's
Okay.
why I'm saying that probably 80 to 90% is in the person's own mind. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. It's just
Right.
very hard to prove that it exists because once you get to that point where you can't explain stuff, there's no way of gathering that actual evidence. Because there's no ghost meters out there. There's nothing. You know, um, matter of fact, I mean, I do this whole lecture on magic and the paranormal where we talk about how the paranormal community is taken from magicians and have used that to bilk the public, you know, um, and we've taken stuff vice versa. And, it's one of these things that the vast majority is unfortunately fake.
Mm.
Um, and because every hotel wants their ghost, every theater wants their ghost. And so it's really hard to pinpoint and to get that real evidence. But so you gather what you can, and then you try to recreate what just happened. And that's when it becomes more on the evidence side than the campfire story side.
So it's
Um,
really rare then. It's like rare. This
it is.
isn't like okay.
And I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, I know ghost hunters that, like I stay away from cemeteries. I think cemeteries are a waste of time. Um, Historically, I love going to them because I'm a history buff. But, as far as ghost hunting in a cemetery, to me, it's useless. It's just one of these things of, what you're hearing is the wind. And so it's really rare to catch something that you can't explain. Uh, like I was at the Empress Theater, and there all of us were right in the theater itself. Um, None of us heard it until we all started doing our playback. Um, and I was giving instruction to the newbies, and you hear a girl's voice behind me saying, kill him,
Mm.
just over and over and over again. None of us heard it. Later on, one of the girls that was with us got scratched. It ticked off one of the investigators. She started to provoke, and you hear a laugh, and this guy say, "Oh, it's the blue one." None of us heard that. Well, it just happened as I was looking through pictures. That particular girl was dressed shoulder to foot in all blue. Um,
Well,
so that's stuff that I have to sit there and say, okay, that's evidence. Um,
Getting
I
back.
was on one of them, and we asked the person, what's your name? And I got the name Richard. Well, it happened that the guy who was rebuilding the Empress, he had a heart attack in the building and died. Um, and I played it to the person that was taking care of the Empress at the time, and she just went white. I mean, all color drained from her face, and she's like, "Well, the guy who died here, his name was Richard." She had contact of his niece and his daughter, and so I took that audio over to them, had them listen to it, and it was his voice.
Hmm.
So there's rare little instances that happen. Um, Very, very little happens on a hunt that you're going to see. It's always in the aftermath that you're going to find your information. It's kind of like the cowboy boots. We didn't hear that until I listened to the audio almost a week later. Because I mean, sitting there, I was just like, oh, this is boring. I mean, ghost hunting really is a boring thing because you're sitting there talking to the dark.
sounds like fishing.
Um, Fishing has more
Yeah,
action,
right.
but so a lot of it, you can't go into a lot of these hunts expecting things to happen, because if you expect it to happen, you're
You
going to
won't.
hear what you want to hear, you're going to see what you want to see. But if you go in with a skeptical mind and skeptical but open at the same time, you're going to come across stuff that you can't explain. And that's where the real evidence starts coming in. Because like I said, if I can recreate it on stage, I throw it out the window.
So you would suggest if you went on a ghost hunting trip that you take a bottle of Jack Daniels with you and consume it liberally before heading out with all your boys?
Well, you'd be consuming the spirits.
See,
I
Brent,
just do that in public all the time.
I'm just thinking about you, Brent, right there.
We call that Tuesday here.
It's funny. They liquor got the name spirits because of people were starting to see a lot of ghosts when they drank, and so they started calling it spirits.
I would.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
I see a
kind
lot of
interesting.
stuff when I'm, 3 sheets to the wind.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, well, this has been fascinating, guys. Really appreciate you guys, both of you, coming out tonight. And
Oh.
sorry Sean wasn't here. He sometimes brings some good questions to the table that we don't think of, but I think we kind of covered it, though, don't you, Brent?
Yeah, no, it's been fantastic, guys. I really appreciate you guys taking time to be with us today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
Always.
Well, hey. Well, everyone, we hope you enjoy these last episodes, Vinny and now Craig and Lorene. And so we're just share the show. We're hitting our stride right now. And you two are fans, too, of our show, right? You guys
Oh,
listen
yeah.
occasionally?
Look,
Yeah.
I
Yep,
started
I am.
listening. Matter of fact, when you guys started up, Brent sent me the invite for the group, and I've been on there since.
Thanks for listening to Three Dad Bods, and make sure to catch their past episodes on Spotify, Apple, and Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure and leave a comment to help stroke their fragile egos.